The nurse didn't stutter. She didn't blink. She just held the chart like it was a grocery list and said, "The paternity markers don't match." That was it. 8 words. 8 dull, clinical syllables that tore through 20 years of marriage like a scalpel through paper. I didn't scream. I didn't ask which markers. I didn't demand she recheck the blood work. I just nodded, like I'd been waiting for this, like I had always known, somewhere deep in the base of my spine, that the numbers wouldn't match. I thanked her. Then I walked out of the pediatric clinic with my hands shaking and a strange clarity blooming behind my eyes. That night, I gave the baby his bottle while Jenna sat across the room, scrolling through her phone like nothing had shifted, like our entire universe hadn't just been peeled open. The boy, my boy, or at least the one I'd raised for 19 months, grabbed my thumb in his sleep. I sat in that chair for a long time, long enough that my legs went numb. Jenna looked up once. "You okay? You're quiet." "Just tired," I said. That was the last lie I ever told her. Before I go any further, I want to say this. Most people never expect it. But the truth is, over 97% of you reading or listening to this story aren't subscribed. If you want to hear more true stories like this, stories that don't scream but cut anyway, hit subscribe. It motivates the team more than you realize. Anyway, by sunrise I was gone. No dramatic confrontation. No finger pointing. No, how could you? In the middle of the night. That's not how I work. That's how people who want answers behave. I wasn't looking for answers. I was looking for air. I left the child asleep in his crib. He stirred once when I brushed my knuckle across his cheek. That's the part that gutted me. That's the part one don't talk about. Jenna was dead asleep. No makeup, one leg kicked out from under the blanket. She looked peaceful, which felt like its own kind of insult. I stood at the door for a second, just to look at her, the way you look at a house before it's demolished. I left everything. My phone, my laptop, my wedding ring on the kitchen counter next to her favorite stupid, bless this mess coffee mug. What I did take was very specific. My passport, my birth certificate, the backup drive from the bottom drawer in the office, the one I'd encrypted and forgotten about after switching jobs, a box from the attic, and the pair of boots I bought years ago for hiking trips we never took because she wasn't into mud. I didn't drive. I walked 6 miles to the 24-hour Greyhound terminal, paid in cash, and caught the first bus heading west. Didn't care where it was going. I just needed it to be far. The seat was torn, the air smelled like diesel and cheap air freshener, and the guy next to me was snoring so hard his lips flapped. But I'd never felt more awake. I watched the city slip away behind the smeared glass window. The skyline I helped build, one damn floor at a time. My name was on half those permits. It used to mean something. Jenna wouldn't even realize I was gone until 9 a.m. She'd wake up, check the monitor, maybe call out for me with that irritated, "Where'd you go?" tone she used whenever she needed me to take the trash out or clean up spilled formula. She'd walk into the kitchen, see the ring by the mug, maybe laugh, maybe think I was being dramatic. But then the hours would pass. She'd call my phone, straight to voicemail. She'd text, "Are you mad? Hello?" She'd start to worry around 2 p.m. Maybe by 4 she'd try my mother. But that wouldn't go well either. Because here's the thing Jenna never realized about me. I don't threaten. I don't bluff. And I don't come back. I had been playing the role of husband, of father, of provider for too long, without ever knowing that I was just a well-dressed extra in someone else's production. And once you see the stage lights, you stop pretending. I didn't disappear to hurt her. I disappeared to find out who I was before her. And I'll be honest. When I vanished that morning, when my boots hit that first stretch of concrete away from our home, I didn't know if I'd ever come back. But I knew one thing for damn sure. I wasn't going to let her find me. Not until I decided she could. That box from the attic. It smelled like dust, insulation, and another life. I hadn't opened it since my father's funeral. And even then, I only tossed it up there because Jenna said it was clutter. Inside were my discharge papers from the Navy, an old Zippo lighter, a black and white photo of my parents on their wedding day, and a spiral-bound notebook with a list of numbers that used to mean something. Some of those numbers still did. The backup drive was the real gem. She never knew about it because she was always too busy claiming every drawer, every shelf, every inch of space in the house as hers. My office became her workout room. My garage corner, her gardening overflow. But that one drawer, bottom left, locked, forgotten. Held a drive that tracked every login credential I'd used over the last decade, every old savings account I'd opened before we merged finances, and a copy of the revocable trust I'd quietly amended 2 years ago. I left the house at 4:37 a.m., not because I needed the early start, but because I knew she wouldn't wake up until 7:15. Jenna's circadian rhythm was as predictable as her Instagram posts. Monday, coffee and mom life. Wednesday, wine and hump day LOL. Sunday, brunch with her friends and the filtered lie of our perfect little life. By the time she got up, I was already through TSA with a one-way ticket I wouldn't use. See, the trick wasn't to take the flight. The trick was to look like I planned to. I left the car in long-term parking with a broken phone on the passenger seat and an airline receipt on the dash. To anyone investigating, it would look like I'd boarded that 6:05 a.m. to Seattle. But I didn't. I walked out of the terminal, circled around to the ground level, and bought a bus ticket using an alias I'd practiced saying in the mirror, Mark Danner, common enough to be forgettable. The driver didn't ask for ID, just smiled and handed me a ticket. Destination: somewhere in the desert, population under 10,000. Perfect. I sat in the back of that bus with the box on my lap and my feet flat on the floor. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I just watched the sun come up over the flat horizon and felt nothing. No rage. No sadness. Just the slow thaw of something I hadn't felt in years. Clarity. I passed a town that looked like it hadn't updated its signage since 1987. I marked it in my mind. Maybe I'd stop there. Maybe I wouldn't. The woman in front of me kept turning around like she recognized me. She didn't. Not really. She was just trying to figure out why a man with a military buzz cut and 1,000-yard stare was riding a bus to nowhere with a cardboard box and no suitcase. I could have told her I was running from something. But the truth was simpler. I wasn't running, I was shedding. By the third state line, I had deleted every digital trace of myself. The burner phone I activated was cash purchased and unregistered. I logged into an old brokerage account tied to a P.O. box I still technically owned and rerouted funds. I wasn't rich, but I wasn't desperate either. The grief came in waves, sharp, cold, then gone. What hurt wasn't the betrayal. It was the stupidity. Mine. I remembered painting the nursery by hand, building the crib from scratch, standing at that hospital window with tears in my eyes thinking, this is what men are made for. Turns out I was made for something else. Something quieter. No note. No goodbye. No revenge letter carefully printed and placed where she'd find it next to her makeup bag. I wasn't interested in teaching her a lesson. I was interested in disappearing so completely that even the idea of me stopped existing. Her friends would speculate. Her mother would cry. The neighbor with the too tight yoga pants would say something smug like, he always seemed a little intense. And Jenna? She would go from confused to worried to angry to desperate. I didn't care about any of that, because in a storage locker 800 miles away, under a different name, I'd already secured a rental apartment. 1 room, cheap, paid in cash, and a hardware store job that didn't ask too many questions as long as you showed up on time and didn't smell like meth. That first night, I ate a gas station sandwich in total silence. No baby monitor. No echo of Jenna's passive-aggressive comments from across the house. No facade. Just me. It didn't feel like freedom. Not yet. It felt like blank paper. Like the moment before the first line is drawn. I turned off the light and lay on the mattress on the floor, staring at the ceiling. I didn't pray. I didn't plan. I just let the silence spread. To her, I had vanished into thin air. But I hadn't disappeared. I just changed gravity. Jenna's first instinct was control. Of course it was. She assumed I was bluffing. Some midlife man tantrum where I'd sleep at a hotel for a few nights, come back sheepishly, and apologize for overreacting. That's what she told her friends at brunch. I imagine the words rolled off her tongue with practiced indifference. He's just overwhelmed. You know how he gets. Needs space. He'll be back. She even left my plate out at dinner the first 2 nights. Like I was a dog who'd gone missing and might find his way home with the smell of meatloaf. But by day 4, she stopped pretending. She started making calls. Not to the police yet. That would have meant admitting she'd lost control. No, she started with my brother. That was her first mistake. Have you heard from him? She asked, voice tight. My brother's always been a better actor than I give him credit for. Haven't talked to him in a few months, he said. Last I heard, he was swamped at work. He left. I think he left me. A pause. Then a sigh. That doesn't sound like him. He hung up. then called me from a burner line I'd left for him 6 months prior. All he said was, "She's starting." I replied, "Let her." Next, she called my mother. That was her second mistake. She tried the sympathetic route. "He's gone. I'm scared something happened. Please, if you know anything." My mother didn't even blink. "Sweetheart," she said. "If he didn't want to be found, you won't find him." Click. That shook her. I know it did. Because the next day, she emailed a coworker of mine from Arizona. The same guy who covered for me once during a snowstorm when our son had the flu. She found him on LinkedIn of all places. "Hey, sorry to reach out like this," she wrote, "but I haven't heard from him in over a week. I know you two used to be close. Any idea where he might go to cool off?" The guy didn't even reply. He just forwarded it to me with the subject line, "She's fishing. You good?" I responded with a thumbs up. That's all I needed to say. See, the thing Jenna never grasped is that people remember how you made them feel. And she didn't make people feel much of anything except tolerated. She'd spent years burning bridges with wet matches, assuming her charm would carry her across. But now the river was wide, and she had no raft. After the second week, the post started. First vague, then increasingly desperate. "If anyone's seen my husband, please DM me. We just want to know he's safe. Please share. Our son misses his father." Our son. Her son. A child I had fed, held, protected until that blood test reminded me I was just a placeholder. A ghost dad. She updated her Facebook profile picture to a smiling photo of the three of us at a pumpkin patch from the previous October. The caption was almost poetic in its delusion. "Come home. We love you." Her comments were full of sympathy. Heart emojis. Prayers. But I noticed how none of them came from people who really knew me. Just acquaintances, neighbors, PTA moms. The ones who thought Jenna was a doting wife and I was the lucky husband. She didn't know the silence wasn't just mine. It was carefully curated. The handful of people who might have had a sliver of an idea where I'd go had long been briefed. I gave them no details, just enough to recognize the signal. "If I ever vanish," I told my brother, "don't look, don't ask. Just know I'm breathing and better off." He nodded once. "Same goes for you, Ma," I told my mother. Her eyes welled up, but she squeezed my hand and said, "Then go be free." I had planted those seeds a year before I left. Not because I expected the test, but because I'd noticed the fractures, the late nights, the odd receipts, the defensiveness wrapped in condescension. "You're just paranoid. It's all your work stress." That's what she told me the night I asked about the extra car mileage. "That's not what you think," she laughed when I found a men's hoodie in the trunk. "You've got too much time on your hands." She smirked when I pointed out the overnight conference she never mentioned on her calendar. But I never argued. I just logged it all. By week 3 of my absence, Jenna finally went to the police. She had to. People were whispering. Her parents were calling. The report was formal. Missing husband. No signs of foul play. Last seen leaving the pediatrician's office. The cops' notes were blunt. No known enemies. Financials in order. Possible voluntary disappearance. She must have been furious. Not because they thought I left, but because they didn't seem eager to find me. When the detective asked for recent photos, she gave them the same pumpkin patch image. She probably cried. She's good at that. What she didn't know was that I wasn't hiding under a rock. I was watching, quietly, carefully, waiting to see what mask she'd wear next. The anxiety hadn't just set in. It had metastasized. She didn't realize I hadn't walked away. I had burned the map. The camera caught her at just the right angle. Smeared mascara, trembling chin, a trembling voice that cracked perfectly on cue. "If you're out there, please just come home. We miss you. I miss you." It aired during the 6 o'clock news on a slow Tuesday. No murders, no school board scandal, just a local mother pleads for missing husband's return. Cue soft piano music. Cue the shot of our porch, the wind chime she always said was tacky. Now suddenly a symbol of longing. Cue the stuffed bear she posed next to the flower pot. The same bear she once called a dust collector. She played the role of abandoned wife like she was auditioning for an Emmy. And for a minute it worked. People commented, "Poor woman. That child needs his father. I hope he's safe. This is heartbreaking." But here's the thing about pretending for the camera. Eventually, the internet notices the cracks. And Jenna? She never knew how to cover her seams. Within 48 hours, a subreddit popped up. Someone posted screenshots of her Facebook from months ago. Party photos? Beach selfies. One where she wrote, "So thankful for the amazing support I have in my life, clinking glasses, kiss mark, hashtag girls night, hashtag blessed." Just 2 weeks before I disappeared. No mention of me. No trace of concern. Another user found her Yelp reviews. Glowing feedback for a hotel in Palm Springs the same weekend she claimed we were reconnecting as a family. One review stood out. She wrote, "Best couples massage I've ever had. Felt like I was the only woman in the world." A third user, clearly some digital bloodhound, cross-referenced timestamps from her social posts with the official missing person filing. They didn't match. The thread title said it all. Why would a loyal husband vanish? Unless he had a reason. Comments flooded in. Something stinks. She's hiding something. What if he found out something devastating? And then someone dropped the bomb. A throwaway Reddit account. No profile. No history. One post. It read, "Ask her who the father is." Attached was a blurred photo of a lab printout. My name, the child's name, and a line highlighted in yellow. Inconsistent with paternity markers. It spread like fire on gasoline. Some thought it was fake. Others started connecting dots. That hotel in Palm Springs? Known for its executive retreats. Her workplace? She'd just gotten promoted. The new supervisor? Divorced. Mid-40s. Gym body. Suddenly the image of the heartbroken mother began to slip. A woman from our old neighborhood commented on a blog post. She always seemed off. Controlling. Like everything had to revolve around her. Even him. The narrative inverted almost overnight. Sympathy twisted into suspicion. Her DMs filled with venom. Did you cheat? Where is he? Did you lie to the police? Is the kid even his? She went private on all platforms. Deleted old posts. Scrubbed photos. But it was too late. The internet had blood in the water. And still, she had no idea where I was. But I was watching everything. Quietly. Carefully. I saw the press conference where she teared up and muttered, "We were happy. We had our routines. I just don't understand." The detective next to her didn't even blink. I knew that look. That was the look of someone who had their doubts but couldn't say it out loud. Yet, she started getting edgy in interviews. Defensive. "I don't know why people are attacking me. Social media's toxic. None of these people know me. This is about my missing husband. Not gossip." But the cracks had spiderwebbed across the glass. One blogger even wrote a piece titled, "When Victims Lie, the Disappearance of a Husband and the Internet's Sleuthing Machine." She tried to regain control. Posted a selfie with the child. Caption, "He just wants his daddy home. Please stop spreading lies." The comments didn't forgive her. One user posted, "Then tell him the truth. All of it." Another wrote, "Funny. You didn't cry this much when he was here." And beneath it, someone posted the lab photo again. Sharper this time. Less blurred. Clearly leaked from someone with access. Maybe the clinic. Maybe a tech. Maybe someone with a conscience. But it didn't matter who. What mattered was that she was no longer in control of the narrative. She was exposed. On her heels. And for the first time, Jenna was being seen for what she was. Not a victim. Not a widow. But a woman who'd built her house of lies on a foundation she thought no one would ever check. And now the world was watching it sink. When people run, they leave patterns. Breadcrumbs. Receipts. GPS pings. Little digital footprints that eventually lead home, unless they were never left to begin with. Jenna assumed I was sloppy. That under the cool silence and disappearing act, I had slipped somewhere. Used a credit card. Logged into an old email. Renewed my driver's license. Anything. She was wrong. The private investigator she hired was former state police. Mid-50s, divorced, 3 ex-wives, a gut full of bourbon and just enough resentment to make him dangerous. I imagine she found him on one of those whisper networks. Discreet, effective, pricey. His first call was to our old bank. Dead end. The accounts had gone dormant, untouched since the week I vanished. Next stop, DMV. No activity. No renewals. No address updates. My driver's license was now just a plastic ghost in the system. She tried property records. Nothing under my name. Not even a storage unit. She gave him old photos, tax returns, names of relatives. Still nothing. The PI reported back with a 3-word update. He's gone dark. What she didn't know, and what he could never guess, was that I'd spent the last year preparing for this long before the allergy test triggered the final switch. I'd slowly drained every shared account, rerouting funds through a chain of LLCs I created back when I was still her loving husband with too much time on his hands. One for consulting, one for digital services, one purely as a shell to catch misdirected wire transfers. All legal, all clean, all untraceable unless you knew where to dig. I worked under a different name now, nothing exotic, just Dale Harker, part-time at a metal scrapyard, part-time janitor at a warehouse that paid cash and never asked for a W-2. In my free hours, I rebuilt furniture for a retired vet who paid me in envelopes and smoked like a chimney. I taught myself how to weld, grew a beard, ate like a farmer. My apartment was a one-bedroom with no internet and a prepaid flip phone that never left airplane mode unless I had to text the guy with the welding gigs. Every morning I woke at 5:30. Coffee. No sugar. No cream. Just hot and bitter. Like truth. Brick by brick, I rebuilt myself into someone I could stand to be alone with. And somewhere out there, Jenna was unraveling. She made another attempt at my mother. Showed up with flowers this time, and the child in tow like a prop. My mother opened the door, looked her dead in the face, and didn't even glance at the boy. "Please," Jenna said, putting on that soft, broken voice she used when she wanted people to feel sorry for her. "I just want to talk." Woman to woman. My mother stepped outside, pulled the door halfway closed behind her. She stared at Jenna like she was something found under a fridge. "I know you know something," Jenna pleaded. "He wouldn't just leave. Not forever. He would," my mother said, voice low. "And he did." "Why?" My mother stepped a half-inch closer. "Because you tore up his soul and smiled while you did it." Jenna blinked. "And he's not your husband anymore," my mother finished, and shut the door in her face. That part made me laugh when she told me about it later. The click of the deadbolt. The stunned silence on the porch. Jenna standing there holding a sad bouquet of wilted grocery store roses. The PI eventually quit. Too many hours. Too many dead ends. Not enough digital noise to chase. He told her, "Ma'am, either he's dead, or he really doesn't want to be found." She started to believe the first part. But she wasn't grieving. She was furious. That's the part people missed. Because Jenna couldn't stand to lose control. She didn't want me back because she loved me. She wanted me back because I'd made a decision without her. She was the director of every script. And I'd gone off book. The media had stopped calling. Her sympathy points had run dry. The child, our shared child, as she liked to say, was growing, asking questions, sensing things. "Where's Daddy?" "He's traveling." "Why don't we call him?" "Because he's busy." Each lie piled on the last, like rotten bricks on a hollow house. And somewhere 1,200 miles away, I was sanding the edge of a broken bench in a sunlit garage, listening to a cassette tape of old blues and watching the dust settle on a life I no longer regretted leaving. She had hit the wall, and every time she threw herself against it, thinking she could break through, she found only silence on the other side. Not because I was hiding, but because I'd already started building the life she never saw coming. For years, that's how long it took for the world to stop whispering her name. Long enough for the gossip to dull, for the sympathy to rot into something sour and forgettable. Jenna moved apartments, switched jobs, rebranded her social media with wellness quotes and pastel brunch photos like she hadn't once stood in front of cameras begging for the return of a man she quietly destroyed. And then one afternoon, she got a message from a number she hadn't saved, but vaguely recognized. It was just a photo. A scan from the back page of Mountain West Trails, a regional hiking magazine no one reads unless they've sworn off city life and learned how to pronounce crampons. A group of volunteers, scruffy, sun-wrinkled faces, all posing in front of a half-repaired trail shelter in southern Utah. Dead center, a tall man, holding a framing hammer, wearing a gray bandana and a navy fleece. It wasn't the face that hit her. The beard was thicker, the jaw broader, the eyes shaded. It was the posture. The way the shoulders curved slightly forward. The tilt of the head, like he was listening for something no one else could hear. Her thumbs trembled as she zoomed in. The message that came with the photo said, "Is this him?" She didn't respond. She didn't have to. She bought a ticket that night. Salt Lake City. Departing at 6:45 a.m. There are people who chase closure because they want peace. Jenna chased it because she couldn't stand the silence. For years of not knowing had eaten away at her bones. She didn't want to fix anything. She wanted the story back in her hands. But I wasn't a story anymore. I was a man again. When she landed, she rented a jeep, always overcompensating, and drove 4 hours south into the scrublands. The trailhead was posted in the magazine caption, "Restoration Team at Big Elk Bluff, led by volunteer Dale Harker." She Googled the name. Turned up nothing. No Facebook. No LinkedIn. No wedding registry. But she knew. The name didn't matter. The lines of my face had changed, but not the weight of it. She pulled into the dusty lot near the trail entrance just after noon, her hands clutching the steering wheel like it owed her answers. She saw hikers in the distance coming down in pairs. None of them looked like me, so she waited, and that's when I walked out of the tree line. Hat low, beard thick, carving knife on my belt. The kind of man you'd avoid at a gas station if you were in the wrong part of the country. She froze. Her lips parted. She stepped out of the jeep and stood by the hood, hands twitching like she didn't know what to do with them. "James?" she said, barely a whisper. I didn't flinch. I kept walking. She stepped forward. "James, it's me." I stopped, looked at her, long enough for her knees to buckle a little, because whatever hope she'd carried on that flight, whatever fantasy she'd nursed for 4 years about tearful reunions and second chances, it died right there on that gravel lot. The man in front of her wasn't her husband. Not anymore. He was someone harder, sharper, weathered in all the places she never touched. She stepped closer. "I didn't know. I swear to God. I didn't know." I tilted my head. "About what?" She blinked. "The test. I didn't, he told me. I thought." I raised my hand to stop her. "You thought a lot of things." Silence stretched between us. She stared at the scar on my hand, the one I'd gotten working with a belt sander in the early days. "You look different," she said finally. I smiled without warmth. "I am." Behind us, the rest of the volunteers were unloading supplies. Someone called out, "Dale, need you on the west wall." I nodded, didn't break eye contact, and said to her, "I have work." "Wait," she said, stepping forward. "Please, just 5 minutes. Coffee. Anything." I considered it, not because I wanted to, but because I wanted her to hear what came next. I pointed to the small shelter up the trail. "We break for lunch at 2. You can sit. You can talk. But you don't get to demand anything anymore." She nodded quickly, like a drowning woman handed a rope she doesn't realize is tied to an anchor. As I walked away, I didn't look back. She thought she was close, but she had no idea how far she still was. The shelter sat on the edge of a rocky ridge, 3,000 feet above the nearest paved road, where the cell towers gave up and the air stung with pine and old smoke. It wasn't a place for sentiment. It was a place for work. Raw, calloused, and quiet. I liked it that way. Up here, people kept their voices low and their eyes forward. They carried what they needed and left the rest behind. She didn't belong here, but there she was, standing at the tree line, watching me sweep debris off the path like the past hadn't followed her up the mountain. I didn't stop. I didn't pause to ask why she came or how she found me. I swept, methodically, left to right, one motion at a time. I could feel her presence like a fever behind my back. Finally, when the last pine needle was gone and the dust settled, I leaned the broom against the shed, took off my gloves, and turned. She was 10 feet away, arms wrapped around herself like they could protect her from the wind, or from me. Her voice cracked before it even reached me. "Why didn't you tell me?" I stared at her. Not cruelly, not kindly, just flat. "Because the truth wasn't mine to reveal," I said. "You buried it. I just read the tombstone." She stepped forward, and for a second I thought she might reach for me. Instead, her hands hung useless at her sides, fists unclenched, palms exposed. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I swear, James, I didn't. He told me it was a scare, that it meant nothing, that it was a lab error." I tilted my head. "Which lie do you believe today?" Tears welled in her eyes. Real this time. Not the performative kind she cried for the cameras or the likes. These were heavier, maybe even honest. "I was scared," she said. "I thought if I told you, you'd leave." "I did." She flinched, hard, like I'd slapped her. I walked past her, toward the ridge, where the view opened up and the wind made everything feel clean. She followed. "I never meant for any of it to happen," she said behind me. "I didn't plan it. I was tired, lonely. You were always working, always buried in your head." I turned back to face her. "You cheated on me?" I said, quiet and plain. Then you lied to me. Then you let me raise a child who wasn't mine because it was easier than owning what you did. And when I found out, when the nurse said those words out loud, you didn't even notice. You kissed me goodnight. Her lip quivered. I was going to tell you eventually. You were never going to tell me, I said. You were going to ride the lie until it either crashed or got old enough to disappear on its own. She broke then. Not gracefully. Not with dignity. She fell to her knees in the gravel, palms scraping on rock, sobbing so loudly the wind itself seemed to hush. I didn't move. I didn't kneel. I didn't offer comfort. I let her cry. When she finally pulled herself together, she sat on a bench under the shelter's overhang, mascara streaked, fingers bleeding slightly from the fall. She looked up at me like I still had something to give. I've tried to fix it, she said. I've been in therapy. I left the job. I don't even talk to him anymore. That's good, I said. But I'm not the reward at the end of your healing. She stared at me. I still love you. I let the silence answer her. Love is a word people like her use when they want to rewind without consequence. When they want you to remember how things felt, not what they were. But I remembered everything. The way she lied without blinking. The way she gaslit with a smile. The way she slept next to me knowing full well she'd detonated the foundation of our lives and just waited to see if I'd noticed the smoke. This place, I said finally, gesturing to the tools, the ridge, the half-finished beams. It's not just a shelter. It's my life now, built from scratch, brick by brick. Without her. I didn't mean her as in Jenna. I meant her as in the version of myself I used to be when I was with her. That man, the devoted, hopeful, blind version, was long dead. And in his place stood someone stronger, harder, quieter. She stood up, slow, hesitant. What now? I met her eyes. Now you go. You don't want to see him? She asked, and I knew she meant the boy. The question hung like a hook between us. But I didn't bite. Instead, I said, you came here for forgiveness. That's not something I owe you. You buried the truth, and I buried the man who would have cared. She turned, wiping her face with her sleeve, her body smaller somehow. And then, she walked back the way she came. No begging, no promises, just wind and gravel. The ridge never echoed footsteps, but I could hear each one of hers like thunder. She showed up at the edge of the campsite just before sunset. Her hair pulled back tight like she was trying to restore order, like if she looked composed enough, the last 4 years would fold themselves back into something manageable. She waited until the others had left, until the rattle of cookware and the flicker of lanterns gave way to that late evening hush you only get in the mountains. I found a diner, she said, voice small. 15 minutes down the road. They're open late. I just want coffee. Please. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I nodded. Fine. But we won't be alone. The puzzled expression on her face barely had time to settle before I added, my attorney will join us. She blinked, the flicker of control slipping again. You brought a lawyer up here? No, I said. He's local. Like me. We drove in silence. The kind where she kept glancing over like she was waiting for me to soften. I didn't. The truth is, I wasn't angry. Anger is loud. I was methodical, something she still hadn't learned to fear. The diner was a worn-out box with a flickering open sign and the smell of burnt coffee baked into the wallpaper. She slid into the booth across from me, her hands already clutching the chipped ceramic mug the waitress dropped off without a word. A few minutes later, my attorney walked in, mid-60s, corduroy jacket, silver beard, the kind of man who reads every line twice and never raises his voice because he knows his words are bullets. She looked between us, confused. What is this? My attorney placed a manila folder on the table like he was laying down a chess move that ends the game 5 turns early. 5 years ago, he said, flipping it open. Mr. Langston filed for divorce in the state of Wyoming. The filing cited infidelity as grounds. Per state law, the respondent must be notified. Notification was executed via publication and certified affidavit. She blinked. You filed without telling me? No, I said. I told you. You just didn't read the fine print. What are you talking about? The attorney slid a single page across the table. Her name was at the top. Her signature at the bottom. The date, 2 months before I disappeared. Her hand trembled as she read. This is from that refinance packet. The one you said was for the mortgage. I sipped my coffee. It was, I said. But buried in the addendum was a clause that stated in the event of an infidelity-related dissolution, the signing party relinquished all rights to marital property held in the shared trust. Her eyes scanned the paragraph, heart pounding in her throat now. But that's not legal. I didn't know what I was signing. My attorney raised an eyebrow. You initialed every page. We had it notarized. And your name was on the deed. Your participation was documented. She swallowed. But we never divorced. We did, I said, leaning forward just enough for her to see the truth in my face. You just weren't served. Not directly. The courts approved notice by publication after 3 attempts failed. You ignored 2 certified letters. Your lawyer at the time didn't respond. She was pale now, like the blood had drained out of her at the mention of her lawyer, one I knew she hadn't spoken to in years. The same lawyer she'd hired during the affair to discuss options in case I ever found out. Which means, I continued, you have no legal claim to anything. Not the house. Not the retirement accounts. Not the trust. Nothing. The waitress came by and refilled her mug without asking. Jenna didn't even blink. You tricked me, she whispered. No, I said. I planned ahead, because I knew one day the truth would surface. I just didn't know when, so I gave myself insurance. She stared at the paper again like she could erase the ink with willpower alone. This can't be real. You can't just erase me. I leaned back. I didn't erase you, Jenna. You signed yourself out the moment you decided honesty was optional. Her lip trembled. What about our son? I said nothing, because even now, even after everything, she still called him ours. Like biology could be papered over with sentiment. Like betrayal could be undone with retroactive guilt. She folded the paper, then unfolded it, hands shaking, eyes scanning for loopholes like she'd always done. But there weren't any left. I closed every door before I ever walked out of that house. And that's when she collapsed, not physically, not dramatically, but internally. The collapse you feel when the performance is over and there's no encore. Her shoulders sagged. Her eyes lost focus. The fingers that once pointed blame at everyone else just hovered there, useless. I let her sit in it. The bitter taste of consequence. She thought she had time. Time to spin the narrative. Time to mend the image. Time to pull me back with tears and confessions. But time wasn't hers anymore. It was mine. Started small. A niche podcast buried somewhere between true crime and self-reliance, hosted by 2 former military guys who traded PTSD stories and survival gear reviews for late-night confessions about broken lives. Their whole angle was men who disappeared. Not criminals, not fugitives. Just men who one day decided to walk. One of them had read a Reddit thread about me. One of those tinfoil conspiracies wrapped in half-truths and emotional guesswork. Man vanished after finding out child wasn't his. Wife claimed abandonment. Internet found out why. They sent a message through a dummy inbox I used to quietly watch the world rot. We'd love to record a short segment. No name, no pressure. Just your side, in your words. First, I ignored it. But one morning, as I watched the snow settle outside the cabin I now lived in, a place so far off-grid the stars felt jealous, I opened the mic, sat in silence for 20 full minutes before I said a word. Then I recorded. I didn't leave because I was weak. I left because silence is stronger than screaming. Because the moment I learned the truth, I knew that no conversation, no apology, could unbreak what she broke. Sometimes a man doesn't leave to hide. He leaves to rebuild. Quietly. Until he no longer owes anyone anything. That was it. They aired it under the title Ghost by Design. A husband's quiet exit. It clocked in at 7 minutes. Buried at the end of an episode about post-divorce men living out of vans. And yet people found it. They felt it. Spread. Quietly. Like frost creeping over glass. First on Twitter. Then in Discords. Then on TikTok, where someone dubbed it over footage of an empty swing set and a train pulling away from a station. The views exploded. Men shared it in group chats with captions like, "This hit too hard." Women shared it with fire emojis and, "Damn, he really left." Even therapists started quoting it. Until he no longer owes anyone anything. It hit Jenna's radar within days. Her inbox lit up. Strangers DM'd her. "Was this about you? You lied to that man and then cried on TV? No wonder he left. You raised a kid on a lie and expected applause?" She tried to deny it. "No, this isn't my husband. My situation is private." But the internet doesn't care about privacy. Old screenshots re-emerged. The leaked paternity results. Her Miss You photo campaign. A blurry still from that TV interview where she cried without a single tear. One comment read, "You weaponized sympathy. He weaponized silence. He won." And she felt it. Slowly, mercilessly. The public flipping. People stopped defending her. Even her own friends, the ones who used to post praying for your family, now went radio silent. Her wellness posts started getting comments like, "Funny how healing looks when no one's buying it anymore. You going to lie to your followers like you lied to your husband too?" She shut down comments, then deleted old photos, then made her account private. But the damage wasn't digital. It was internal. Because for the first time she wasn't in control of the story. I was, and I hadn't even said her name. I never mentioned where we lived. I didn't describe her hair or her job or the town. And yet, everyone knew. Because truth doesn't need specifics. It just needs weight. And the weight of my silence crushed her louder than any public accusation ever could. She tried one last Hail Mary, a post on a community Facebook page. "To those assuming things, you don't know me. You don't know my story." Someone commented under it, "We didn't have to. He told it without a word." Her reply was deleted within minutes. But the thread lived on. Screenshot. Shared. Immortalized. The world didn't just see what she did. They saw what I didn't do. No screaming. No revenge show. No tell-all book. Just a calm voice on a forgotten podcast, explaining what it means to disappear on your terms. She sat alone in her apartment. Our old couch, the child asleep in the next room, and scrolled through 1,000 reminders that I wasn't coming back. Not because I was cruel, but because I had become untouchable. And there's no panic louder than realizing the man you betrayed is no longer angry. He's simply gone. It was early autumn when she came back. No announcement, no email, no voicemail left in the static hours of the night. She just appeared. A silver Toyota parked crooked on the edge of the trailhead gravel. Dust on the hood. Leaves caught in the windshield wipers. I saw her before she saw me. She got out slowly. Hair tied back. Streaks of gray now chasing the gold. No makeup, no performance. Just the weight of time draped across her shoulders like a coat she hadn't asked for. The passenger door didn't open at first. Then it did, just a crack. I caught the glimpse of a teenage boy, hoodie pulled low, head down. She stepped forward, careful like someone who knew this wasn't her ground to stand on anymore. There were no reporters, no microphones, no public theater. Just pine needles underfoot and that sharp mountain stillness that makes you speak softer without knowing why. When she reached me, she didn't cry. That part of her was done. Instead, she stood there, hands clenched in front of her like a child asking for forgiveness she didn't fully understand. "He wanted to see where you live," she said, nodding slightly toward the car. I didn't respond. I didn't tell him who you were. Not at first. Just said you were someone important to me. But then the podcast, the videos, the comments. He started putting it together. He's smart. You'd be proud. Still, I said nothing. "I've made mistakes," she added. "But I thought maybe, just maybe, if you saw him, if he saw you, you might." She let the sentence die. There was no point finishing it. Then she looked up at me. Really looked. Into my face. into my silence, and whispered, "Will you ever come back?" I studied her, the lines in her face, the absence of heat in her eyes. Not anger, not love, just erosion, like life had worn her down grain by grain. Then I looked at him, the kid in the car, his face partially visible now, watching us. He had my posture but not my blood. He had my habits, the quiet stare, the stillness, but none of my name. I walked a few steps toward the car, close enough for him to see my face clearly. His hand moved toward the door handle, uncertain. His eyes scanned mine for something, recognition maybe, or permission. I turned back to her, and softly, I said, "I was never the one who left." Her breath caught, just once. No sobbing, no grand collapse, just silence. Deep, honest. She nodded, and for the first time in her life, Jenna didn't argue. As I turned and began walking back toward the ridge, I heard the car door creak open behind me. Footsteps, lighter than hers. Hesitant. I didn't look back. I didn't need to, because I knew whatever happened next, whatever that boy decided, whoever he grew into, my part in his story wasn't built on lies. It was built on absence. And sometimes, absence speaks louder than anything. The trees swallowed me back into the path. And somewhere behind me, a boy stood still, watching a man walk away. Not in rage, not in defeat, but in a silence earned the hard way. That was the final question. And my legacy? It wasn't about what I'd taken from her. It was about what she could never take from me.